You've probably heard two completely different pieces of advice from two completely different people. Your uncle says, buy property. It's the only real investment. Your coworker says, dump everything into index funds and never look back. Both of them are confident. Both of them think the other one is wrong. And honestly, both of them might be missing the bigger picture entirely. Today, we're settling this debate once and for all. Real estate versus stocks. Which one actually builds wealth faster? And I'm not giving you some wishy-washy answer where I just say, it depends and call it a day. We're going to break down the real numbers, the real risks, and the real strategy that wealthy people actually use. Stick around because the answer might genuinely surprise you. Let's start with the most fundamental question. What are we actually comparing here? Because most people frame this debate completely wrong from the beginning. They compare buying a rental property to buying shares in a single company, and that's not a fair fight. For this conversation, we're talking about residential real estate versus broad market index funds, specifically those that track the overall stock market. That's the honest comparison. Now let's talk returns. Historically, the US stock market has delivered an average annual return of roughly 7 to 10% after adjusting for inflation. That's a long-term average, going back over a century. Real estate, on the other hand, has historically appreciated at around 3 to 4% annually in real terms. So if you're just looking at raw appreciation numbers, stocks win. It's not particularly close. But wait, here's where real estate investors will immediately push back, and they have a point. Real estate gives you leverage that the stock market simply doesn't offer in the same way. When you buy a home or rental property, the bank lets you control an asset worth several $100,000 with just 20 or 25% down. So if that property goes up in value by 4%, you're not earning 4% on your down payment, you're earning 4% on the property's total value. On a $300,000 home with $60,000 down, a 4% appreciation means $12,000 in gains on your $60,000 investment. That's a 20% return. Leverage changes everything. Of course, leverage is a double-edged sword. When the market drops, and it does drop, your losses are amplified in exactly the same way. Anyone who lived through 2008 knows this lesson all too well. Properties that seemed like guaranteed wealth builders became financial anchors overnight. People lost everything. So leverage isn't free money, it's borrowed risk. Now let's talk about something most people completely ignore when comparing these two: the total cost of ownership. Stocks are remarkably clean in this regard. You buy shares, you hold them. Maybe you pay a tiny expense ratio of a fraction of a percent per year, and that's largely it. Real estate, the costs are everywhere. Property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs, vacancies if you're renting, property management fees if you hire someone to handle tenants, HOA fees in some cases, and the enormous transaction costs every time you buy or sell. We're talking about closing costs that can eat 5 to 10% of the property value in a single transaction. These costs are real, and they significantly eat into your returns when you do the honest math. But here's something that genuinely favors real estate: cash flow. A well-chosen rental property generates monthly income while simultaneously appreciating in value. You're building equity through your tenants' rent payments. Your property is going up in value over time, and you're receiving a monthly check. Stocks can pay dividends, yes, but typically in the range of 1 to 2% annually for broad index funds. A good rental property in the right market can cash flow significantly more than that relative to the initial investment. There's also the tax dimension, which most casual investors never think about deeply enough. Real estate has some extraordinary tax advantages baked into the system. Depreciation allows landlords to deduct a portion of their property's value each year as a paper expense, even while the property is actually appreciating in real life. This can dramatically reduce or even eliminate the tax you owe on rental income. On top of that, when you sell an investment property, you can use something called a 1031 exchange to roll those profits into another property and defer capital gains taxes indefinitely. Stocks have long-term capital gains treatment, which is favorable, but it doesn't compare to the level of tax engineering that's available in real estate. All right, so let's talk about the thing nobody wants to talk about: time. Real estate is not a passive investment unless you're paying someone else to manage it, in which case your returns shrink considerably. Being a landlord is a job. Tenants call at midnight, pipes burst, roofs need replacing. You deal with evictions, lease renewals, and maintenance contractors. Even with a property manager handling the day-to-day, you're still involved in major decisions and still responsible for costs. Stocks, by contrast, require almost nothing from you. You set up automatic contributions, you don't touch it, and you let compound interest do its work over decades. For many people, especially those with demanding careers or families, that simplicity has enormous real-world value that doesn't show up in any return calculation. Liquidity is another massive factor. If you need $20,000 from your stock portfolio tomorrow, you can have it in your account within a couple of days. Try doing that with a property. Selling real estate takes months under ideal conditions, and if the market is cold or the property has issues, you could be waiting much longer. In a financial emergency, illiquidity can be genuinely devastating. This is a risk that real estate investors routinely underestimate until they're living through it. So where does this leave us? Let's talk about what the actual data show when researchers examine long-term wealth among high net worth individuals. The pattern is consistent and fascinating. Wealthy people almost never choose one or the other. They use stocks for growth, liquidity, and simplicity. They use real estate for leverage, cash flow, and tax advantages. The wealthiest Americans hold both, and they use each asset class for what it does best, rather than forcing one to do everything. The real question you should be asking isn't which one is better in the abstract. It's which one is better for you right now, given your income, your risk tolerance, your time availability, and your financial goals. If you're 25 with a stable income and decades of runway ahead of you, dumping money consistently into index funds and letting compounding do its thing is an extraordinarily powerful strategy. If you're in a position to take on a mortgage, you understand your local real estate market, and you have the time and temperament to manage a property, real estate can build wealth in ways that pure stock investing simply cannot replicate. Here's the pattern I see most often among people who actually achieve financial independence. They start with stocks because the barrier to entry is low and the process is automated. As their income grows and they learn more, they add real estate to the mix. They use the cash flow from real estate to fund more stock investments. They use the liquidity of their stock portfolio as a safety net, allowing them to take measured risks in real estate. They build both pillars simultaneously rather than betting everything on one. The debate itself is kind of a trap. It's designed to make you pick sides, when the genuinely wealthy are playing a completely different game. They're not asking real estate or stocks. They're asking how to use both strategically to accelerate wealth from multiple directions at once. So here's what I want you to do right now. Think honestly about your situation. What do you have time for? What can you afford? What keeps you up at night with worry? Your answers will tell you more about the right starting point than any comparison of historical returns ever could. And if you want to go deeper on how to actually build a stock portfolio from zero, or how to analyze a rental property deal before you commit, let me know in the comments. That's exactly the kind of content we're going to keep building here. See you in the next one.